Now, my mama told me a lot of things growing up. She said, stand up straight. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all, and never kick them while they're down. But, I don't see my mama, do you? And that is why today's video is going to be about Walmart's overpowered 15.6-inch gaming laptop. Could it possibly be as bad as their desktop? Well, there's only one way to find out, isn't there? And this video is sponsored by Elgato. The Stream Deck Mini has 6 fully customizable LCD buttons with easy-to-use programming software. Check it out at Amazon or Newegg at the link below.
All right, so my idea is we crack the box open, see, you know, if it comes with anything epic.
Overpowered, maybe? Can we do this pose?
Let's do this like this.
Okay, hold on.
But
Hold on, I gotta get serious.
No smiling, no smiling like this.
Okay, hold on. Sorry.
What?
I can't do it. So spec-wise, we're looking at a Core i7-8750H. Has a 6-core processor, GTX 1060, 6 gigs, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, 1 terabyte hard drive, 144 Hz 1080p display, RGB backlit mechanical keyboard, and Windows 10. I mean, on paper, like specifically this paper right here, this ticks pretty much all the boxes, with the only issue being the price. So we ordered this actually at around the same time that we ordered our desktop, but it didn't arrive until quite recently because they screwed up our order, and when we went to pick it up, the laptop just wasn't there with our order, and it was only because we checked before we left the store. We did in-store pickup that we were able to point out that, hey, the $1,400 laptop we ordered ain't here, dog. So it comes with an external power brick that's kind of big, but also not too thick, so I guess that's nice. A quick start guide. A, connect AC adapters jack into other more different jack. B, the display panel can be opened to a wide range of angles for optimal viewing. C, press the power button. All right.
So this laptop actually arrived in sysprep mode, and there was no bloatware installed whatsoever, same as with the desktop.
Really? So they've got their control center, but
that's it.
That is the most hilarious animation.
Look at it. You're about to game.
What the hell? Who thinks that's a good idea? I mean, it's the same kind of thing you'd have with a normal program. It doesn't have like an acceleration curve. It's just like,
for those who don't know, it's called disruptive innovation, okay? So you just got disrupted.
So in the OP Control Center, you can turn on and off your LED light bar, which is right here. It's RGB. You can turn on and off your keyboard backlight. You can, you can turn off the internal display. Oh crap, now what? You can do a bunch of different keyboard effects. You can alter your fan settings. So office mode or gaming mode. It was in gaming mode by default. There's also a turbo mode. Whoa! You know, as far as system bloat goes, this is really not bad. However, as not bad as it might be, this is just a skin. What? What is this? What are they doing? There's no way that that is not programmed in. So what was the intent here?
Disruptive innovation, I told you.
Peel ejected.
One can say that your peel was not too appealing.
One can, but one shouldn't. Okay, what does this mean? Tap twice? Hey, there's a little light in the touchpad. So when you tap this corner twice, it enables or disables the touchpad. So to Walmart's credit here, there actually are a fair number of features, you know, whether you buy into the RGB hype or not, that are specifically tailored to gamers. As for the overall sort of build quality of the machine, I would describe it just from sort of a fit and finish standpoint here as average at best, but
I'm staying. Be careful. Let's all make it home tonight. The hostages out. Let's move out. The hostages. Terrorists win. Let's go, let's go. Throwing flashbang. Coming out. Throwing fire. Counter-terrorists win. The hostage has been rescued.
If anyone needs a weapon or so, just say it, I have enough money. What?
Grab your gear, let's go.
Sorry, but I don't understand you.
Fire in the hole.
Flashbang.
Counter-terrorists win.
Hostages coming out. The hostages out.
It's okay to worry.
Let's go, people. Molotov. Grenade out.
Certainly not the worst thing I've ever seen. And spec-wise, the 144 hertz display is not immediately disappointing to me. Not super bright or anything, but it's not super dim either. Like, no, okay, stop that. Hey, stop that. So moving stuff around quickly on screen, there's pretty good clarity even during fast movement. So yeah, it's not a CRT or anything, but for an IPS panel, that's not bad.
What do you think of
All
the
right,
mechanical keyboard?
It has a mechanical keyboard.
According to the specs,
Oh, ooh, ooh, oh, that's stupid. So the OP control center is not tied into the keyboard brightness adjustment over here. So if you turn it off, oh man, that is so cringe. To see if it's actually mechanical, we actually pried one of the keycaps off here, and yeah, it does appear to be. So we've got our metal contact piece here that seems to be
Let's go.
what makes the key itself actuate. So it actually does actuate before it bottoms out. But the issue is that it's almost like they implemented this feature without a clear understanding of why or what it is about mechanical keyboards that makes them good for gaming. Because they've got kind of a very heavy feel toward the top of the key press, and then they're quite mushy after that. So there's no real clear advantage over just a short travel scissor switch, for example.
how do you feel about the numpad? I think it's a little too cramped.
So I like that they're using all the space that they have here for keyboard. Like they're going almost edge to edge keyboard, which is nice. Like the keys are quite big. But I kind of question the wisdom, actually not just of this one, but of our other contestants as well, of including a numpad on a gaming laptop. Like what are you playing? Like a counting simulator? Like,
Even line.
okay, that's what I said.
Lock and load. Molotov.
Hey, hey! So for I/O, we've got USB 2, Ethernet, audio, dedicated microphone jack. That's kind of nice to see. Over here, we've got two USB 3s, an SD card reader, and then, oh wow, that's not bad. A USB Type-C, which is over with our display outputs, HDMI and then two mini display ports that I guess is because they figure people will use it as a display out more than as just a USB port. That's sort of an interesting thought. And actually a lot of ventilation. Heat sinks here, 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 and here, and then basically just wide open mesh across the bottom. But it still actually has a reasonable amount of structural rigidity down here. It's not bad.
Move it, move it. Throwing fire.
Should we crack it open?
Well, assuming we can put the thing back together.
Should be fine. Do we have a parts tray or anything that we can kind of use as a proxy?
We have a shot.
So I thought we were ready to go, but they've got a warranty void if removed sticker.
Oh, what shall we do now?
How
Throwing fire.
Terrorists win.
Be careful. Let's all make it home tonight. Molotov.
However, will we address that? So it uses a similar approach to the LG Gram. Now with LG, they were saving weight by using a main board and then daughter boards with these ribbon cables connecting them. But whether it was a cost or a weight savings, they've ended up with a really interesting internal layout. So without increasing the thickness of the device, it makes extra room for higher profile, like thicker cooling fans and heat sinks and stuff like that, because they're not fighting with the PCB for space. And then we get a similar effect over here for our M.2 drive. Now it should be noted that this is not an NVMe SSD. So this is just a regular SATA SSD, just in an M.2 form factor. You can see though, if you wanted, you could put a PCIe one here, or you could put a second PCIe one here, but not another SATA M.2. That's why you gotta watch out for this compatibility.
They could have just expanded the battery capacity because this is pretty chintzy.
Here.
Let's move out.
Yeah.
flashbang. Throwing fire.
Terrorists win.
Grab your gear, let's go. Flashbang.
Terrorists win.
Let's go. Smoke. Throwing a grenade. Molotov. Flashbang. Throwing flashbang.
No?
And that is actually a perfect segue into how exactly it is that Walmart, best known for good prices on, bathroom paper, got into the laptop manufacturing business. I thought, and I would have put money on it, that what they had done was rebranded a laptop unit from the company Clevo, who is well known for supplying other brands with their manufactured laptops. But I
Move it. Throwing fire. Throwing fire.
was wrong. So, to whom do we owe the pleasure of inspecting this laptop while I'm putting it back together here?
This is the ODM known as Tongfang.
Tongfang? I've never even heard of them.
Neither have I up until, what, 2 days ago? And apparently Turkish reseller Monster sells laptops based on this exact
for talk's over. Let's do this.
Barebone, which is known as Gamma Kilo 5 Charlie Noob 6 Xavier.
Am I supposed to have heard of that? Like, is that supposed to add credibility or
Well,
Monster?
does the fact that Origin PC use the same?
See, I had thought that Origin just used Clevo. Like, I thought everyone just used Clevo. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't aware of these guys at all, like Sager, Eurocom. Origin. I thought it was just all Clevo rebrands, but then there's this, sorry, what are they called again?
Tongfang.
Tongfang, company that I've hardly ever heard of. I say hardly because I have technically heard of them in the last 3 minutes here. So here's the thing. This approach of basically rebranding what someone else has already built has advantages, like allowing a company like Walmart, who has no experience whatsoever designing computers, to just jump right into the market with a product that might have some flaws, like this keyboard is very imperfect, but is otherwise balancedly spec'd and very functional. The disadvantage is that it's hard to differentiate yourself. So Ivan mentioned that Origin PC also sells this model. Can you spec out an identical config to this on Origin? And how much does that cost us? Bear in mind, we paid $1,400 US for this.
Now, based on our previous experience where by dealing with the Origin PC, the $1,500 gaming system that they said us not, guess how much this config would cost? Origin PC spec'd out to be pretty much same as this minus 1 terabyte hard drive.
Okay, how much? $1,400, so identical to what Walmart was charging, except that with
Let's show them we mean business. Grenade.
Origin, you get to have Origin's customer service, which in Secret Shopper we have established it was at least sample size of 2, I guess, but was excellent. And you'll have the confidence that down the line, if you need help with your system, Origin PC will probably still be in the PC business, whereas with Walmart, I'm not sure if that's so clear. Either way, Origin did not score well in value, which leads us to the question,
We gotta move, guys.
is Origin going aggressive on their laptop pricing, or is Walmart enjoying Origin-like markups?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it has to be one of them.
Duh.
You've probably been asking yourself, why do you have these other laptops on the table? You'd be asking yourself a good question. So when we bought it, this was $1,400. But in the time that it's been sitting on our shelf, Walmart implemented a rollback to only $800 US for this thing. So over here, we've got an $800 Nitro 5 from Acer, rocking a Core i5 8th gen and a GTX 1050 Ti. And then over here, representing the $1,400 price point, we've got an Asus ROG, I think this is a SCAR or something. It's a last gen processor.
Let's teach him a lesson.
But in terms of gaming performance, it should be quite similar, and the GPU is a GTX 1060. So in Cinebench or whatever, it won't perform as well as the current gen version of this, but in games, it should be basically identical. So let's go ahead and fire up our stress test here and make sure that, you know, there's not any egregious thermal throttling issues or anything like that. Were you expecting this to be clocked like 300, 400 megahertz lower than the Asus model?
According to what I researched in prior, this laptop does have thermal throttling issues. Runs hot, but we cannot hear it at all. Perhaps it's because you set it into like desktop mode in
I didn't
Opina
though.
Center.
Oh, I was on battery. Well, wait, so that means then anyway that Asus's on battery performance profile is much more aggressive. I'm still on battery.
Yeah, let's take a look how much battery is left, because they were on it for the same time.
An hour and 14 minutes, 60% remaining. 38% remaining. So they're both terrible.
Oh.
There we go. 150, 165 FPS. So they've been running long enough to
Let's go!
reach equilibrium now. Bottom line is, this guy clocks in anywhere from 80 to 100 megahertz slower than this one, and the performance cap reason given by GPU-Z is power for both of them, but our overpowered laptop hits this cap more frequently. They're both around the same temperature, with this one coming in at around 71 degrees. We had to stop it for a second here because I had a microphone issue. Don't worry about it anyway. 71 degrees, and this one at 74, with the overpowered being about as loud, maybe a touch louder. Let's see how it goes in actual games though. So performance-wise, it is already falling behind the Asus machine, but by like 2 to 4 FPS here and there. And it is way ahead, not just in terms of FPS, but also just in terms of playability. Like with how dark this display is, it's really hard to make out details in the shadows. And there goes the power outage that we were sure was probably coming at some point today. Oh boy.
Winds peaking at 100 kilometers an hour, blasting trees and knocking down power lines. A houseboat adrift after being torn from its moorings. BC Hydro warning that some homes and businesses may not get their power back for days.
So I'm gonna make my best attempt at an Ivan joke. So
Flashbang.
Thanks, mate. Mate.
Terrorists win.
Sorry. Ha 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 ha.
You might say that the laptop was so OP that the power went out.
No, I would usually cue into like, this laptop is so full of OP-ness.
So we had to throw out the results we were getting last time because they all switched to battery power in the middle of the run. We'll be back with you in a moment here. So this is interesting. Our similarly priced Nitro 5 comes in at just 2/3 the average frame rate of our overpowered machine, and with other significant disadvantages as well, including a weaker CPU, as well as a worse screen. But then, moving up into the original pricing of our overpowered, well, it wasn't really that competitive because due to the faster clock speed of our GPU, over here, we still ended up with higher frame rates, even though this one has an inferior CPU. So this one is, I think the official MSRP is actually $1,600, but you can find it for about $1,400 on Amazon. Just to validate what I was saying before, we popped out of the game and had a look at what core clocks we were running at during the benchmark, and yes, in fact, the overpowered machine is running at anywhere from 50 to about 80 megahertz slower on the GPU in actual games. Last result just came in for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and this is interesting. So, average frame rates, again, our $800 machine, like true $800 machine, is way slower than our rolled back $800 machine. And that one falls a little bit behind ASUS's, particularly in the minimum frame rates. Interesting. Let's do one more game. So I'm sitting in the 130, 140 FPS range. What are you sitting at right now?
160-ish, 150, 160.
So when we're running into a CPU bottleneck, we can see here that our Core i5 8th gen is actually not that far behind. So we're running at 1080p and all high with 16x anisotropic filtering. So, okay, so only about 20 FPS difference. Now let's take our two $1,400 gaming laptops. Man, that high refresh rate display makes a big difference, eh? Holy crap. So not only am I lower than last time, but the Asus machine is absolutely crushing it. It's well over 200 frames per second.
240. Let's here, let me stand in the same spot.
It's like 80 FPS higher. Did you know this was gonna happen?
Nope.
So there's clearly
Come on, let's go. Throwing a flashbang. I'm throwing smoke. Burn.
some power management or some kind of profile issue going on here. So here, I'm not gonna have Task Manager running in the background. Let's make sure that you don't have extra background crap running.
How will we analyze? Isn't it kind of like
Well, I just want to know what the frame rate is, because honestly,
Task Manager, you think affects things?
not much, but it's a little bit. I think it can use a couple percent.
Yeah, but not to the tune where this is like
Okay, tell you what, then let's
slower.
both have it open.
Yeah.
Then. Fine. What's sucking up all my memory? CSGO is using 1.3 only. That doesn't even make any sense. I know what it is. No, it's not. What the?
Fire in the hole.
Okay, well.
Single channel, you thought? Right?
Yeah, but they're both single channel. And this one's running faster. That's only 2400 megahertz. What is going on here? Okay, let's just go ahead and launch the game. So let's make sure we're running the same settings though. Okay, it's all the same. So let's go back, let's try again. Ooh, snowballs. So I'm back up to like 160, like we had on our first run. I also want to just kind of feel the experience because, to be clear, even if it runs at a lower frame rate than that one, it's only got a 144 hertz display, like it's... So I'm still at 130, 140, 150-ish FPS.
190, 180.
Damn it, I'm getting shot. And you're at... Really? Okay, so why don't we stand here and smoke this doorway. So I'm at 140 and you're at 170. Honestly, I think we're ready to draw the conclusion at this point. Compared to another $1,400 laptop with some of the weirdness that we've encountered, I wouldn't take the overpowered, with the keyboard being honestly the biggest issue for me personally because I do a lot of typing. With that said, compared to an $800 laptop, this is crazy because I am about to recommend a Walmart OP gaming device because compared to what you get for 800 bucks, this absolutely mops the floor with it, both in terms of the features, like the 144 hertz display, and in terms of the performance at anywhere from nearly double to about 50% better. So that just happened. That just happened right now, but only because they rolled back the pricing. So you heard it here first, folks. Get them while they're hot, and then otherwise don't get them. Don't get them when they're not hot and on sale. Speaking of hot, this video
nasze materiały napędza cenę o...
Let's roll. Throwing flashbang. It's set.
Brought to you.
Sometimes a developer.
Największa porównywarka cen gier.
Arn.eu.
Pamiętam cię, jakby to było wczoraj, BitBoyu, a tak naprawdę twój pierwszy model zrecenzowaliśmy już 1,5 roku temu.
Let's go, let's go! Throwing flashbang. Counter-terrorists win. Lost! Decoy. Deploying flashbang. Grenade out.
Minęło kupę czasu i tym razem firma odpowiedzialna za BitBoya, nawet nie wiem jak się nazywa, bo nigdzie nie jest to napisane na pudełku, jakaś chińska firma wysłała nam najnowszy model tego urządzenia z prośbą o jego recenzowanie. Może pamiętacie, że pierwsza wersja była bardzo dziwaczna, mieliśmy śmieszne perypetie związane z tą konsolą. Zapraszam do naszego klasycznego materiału. Ale podobno drugi model BitBoya jest na tyle różny od pierwszego, że zdecydowanie warty jest ponownego spojrzenia. Zasada jego działania ma być drastycznie różna od pierwszego modelu i zobaczymy, czy tak jest naprawdę. Chodź tu. Wygląda jak Game Boy, pod palcami przyciski są w porządku. Z tyłu mamy, tak jest, wbudowana bateria o pojemności rzekomo 700 mAh. Co ciekawe, jest to bateria z Game Boya Advance SP, więc baterie z Game Boya Advance są kompatybilne. Co mamy jeszcze w pudełku? Drugi kartonik, a wewnątrz niego kabel do podpięcia gadżetu do telewizora i do ładowania USB mikro. Nie ma żadnej instrukcji obsługi, co jest dość problematyczne i do czego na pewno jeszcze za chwilę wrócimy. Na ekranie najwyraźniej nie pojawi się nic więcej i nic się nie odpali. Jest ku temu jeden dobry powód. Mianowicie, tak jak oryginalny Beat Boy był gadżetem z wbudowanym X-Gear, tak ten jest emulatorem, do którego należy włożyć kartę microSD tutaj u góry, która oczywiście nie jest w zestawie i musiałem się wyposażyć w taką sam. Więc tak, zapakujemy kartę microSD do środka i zobaczymy, co się stanie. No dobrze, kochani, wróciłem, załadowałem trochę gier na kartę pamięci i jestem gotów do testów. Pierwsze wrażenia są całkiem pozytywne, jakość ekranu jest wysoka.
Fire in the hole! Throwing flashbang!
Kolory są ostre, żywe, kąty patrzenia są jak najbardziej odpowiednie. W lewym górnym rogu mamy wskaźnik poziomu baterii. Pozwoliłem sobie podłączyć urządzenie do ładowania, żeby nie wysiadło nam podczas testów. Responsywność jest w porządku, jakość przycisków jak najbardziej prawidłowa. Jedyne, co denerwuje mnie w tego typu tanich chińskich urządzeniach, jest fakt braku instrukcji obsługi, a jak są, to bardzo źle tłumaczone. Tutaj w tym wypadku również trzeba sobie pobrać instrukcje z sieci i okazuje się, że konsola ma sporo więcej takich podstawowych, wydawałoby się, funkcji, niż na pierwszy rzut oka może się wydawać. No bo nie ma tutaj nigdzie żadnego skomplikowanego menu, jest tylko wybierałka, czy chcemy grać w gry z Game Boya, czy z NES-a i wciśnięcie żadnego przycisku nie otwiera żadnego dodatkowego menu. A okazuje się, że
Sorry.
na przykład przytrzymując Select i B można zmieniać głośność. Select B, Select A zmieniają głośność, że Select i TB i TA zmieniają jasność ekranu podczas grania, to chyba nie działa w menu, oraz że konsola posiada możliwość zapisywania postępu. takiego typowo emulatorowego. I nie wiedziałbym tego, gdybym nie pobrał sobie z sieci instrukcji. Sprawdźmy, jak z jakością emulacji. Wybrałem kilka gier, które wiem, że miewają problemy z tymi tanimi gadżetami i zobaczymy, jak sobie poradzą tutaj. Przede wszystkim Gruniożerca 2 to jest gra Homebrew, która kiepsko działa na klonach, na przykład ma problemy.
We got this. Throwing a grenade. Flashbang. Counter-terrorists win. Move it! Move it! Granate! Throwing flashbang. Laying down smoke. Deploying flashbang.
Z bankami pamięci i zobaczymy, jak sobie poradzi tutaj. Start? Jaka animacja. O, przede wszystkim jest bardzo głośno, więc spróbujmy. Proszę bardzo, faktycznie jest suwak głośności schowany pod skrótem klawiszowym, o którym nie miałbym bladego pojęcia, gdybym sobie nie poszukał w internecie. Naprawdę instrukcja w pudełku to powinna być podstawa. I ta gra różnie działa na emulatorach. To jest w ogóle wersja beta Gruniożercy 2 prototypowa z dawno, dawno temu, bo ona działa jeszcze gorzej niż takie wersje późniejsze, więc miałem nadzieję, że jeżeli wrzucę taką kompletnie problematyczną wersję Gruniożercy, to w ten sposób przetestuję, czy wszystko gra. Jak się naciśnie przycisk R, okazuje się, że otwiera się przycisk opcji. Można sobie rozciągnąć do pełnego ekranu grę, albo też w prawidłowych proporcjach 4:3 grę. Można zmienić tryb.
Go, go, go!
obrazu między telewizorem a wyświetlaczem, ponieważ konsola ma też wyjście wideo oraz jak widać mamy dostęp do szybkiego zapisu emulatorowego. Mogę zresetować gruniożercę jakoś łatwo? Że przytrzymując przycisk R? O proszę. Przytrzymując przycisk R wychodzi się z gry. Chyba nie ma skrótu żadnego do resetowania. No ale pierwsze wrażenia są w porządku. Gra się odpala, działa.
Move it!
Więc najwyraźniej emulacja NES-a jest całkiem w porządku, ale sprawdzimy jeszcze inne gry oczywiście, żeby mieć pewność, że wszystko śmiga jak powinno. Gruniożerca bez problemu. Sterowanie jest w porządku, podoba mi się jakość przycisków. Kontra działa jak najbardziej prawidłowo.
Go!
Prawidłowo. Najmniejszych problemów z nią nie widzę. Bez problemu akceptuję nawet duże liczby wciśnięć, więc jestem pod wrażeniem, szczerze przyznam, jestem pod wrażeniem. Zmieńmy tryb ekranu, zobaczmy jak wygląda gra, gdy wypełni się nią ekran. Zróbmy tryb pełny i zobaczymy, czy to coś zmieni. O proszę, teraz obraz jest rozciągnięty. Ja nie lubię tak grać, ale jest taka opcja. Ups.
Move it! Fire in the hole!
Dla chętnych. Moim zdaniem wygląda w porządku. Jak najbardziej wszystko gra. Nie ma żadnych problemów z prędkością emulacji. Więc jestem jak najbardziej pod wrażeniem, jeżeli chodzi o gry na NES-a. Jeszcze na szybko, dla pewności, Mario. Śmiga jak marzenie. Naprawdę nie bardzo mam się do czego przyczepić. Jestem zaskoczony, biorąc pod uwagę, że poprzednia wersja tego Beat Boya była dość kontrowersyjna. Dobrze, no ale tak wyglądają gry na NES-a. Zobaczmy gry na Game Boya Colora. Chociaż może tu są oddzielone od siebie gry na Game Boya Classica i na Game Boya Color. Zobaczymy, czy ta... Tak, tu wyświetlają się tylko gry Game Boyowe, a tu tylko gry na Colora. No to na szybko.
Go! Granate! Throwing fire! has been planted.
Rzućmy okiem na oba typy. Zacznijmy od pierwszej gry z brzegu. To są gry Homebrew, darmowe do pobrania z sieci. Fuck You Emulator. To jest interesujące, bo to...
Los, los, los!
Oznacza, że gra wykrywa jak najbardziej, że jest odpalana na emulatorze, czyli nie jest to 100% idealna emulacja systemu Game Boy. Ciężko się spodziewać, że była 100% idealna, szczerze powiedziawszy. I widzę zniekształcenie obrazu dzięki temu, chyba że to tylko wina tego fonta. Sprawdźmy. Tak, zdecydowanie można dostrzec, szczególnie może jak zbliżę, że literki są delikatnie zniekształcone, więc nie ma tutaj natywnej rozdzielczości gier Game Boyowych. Ale oprócz tego gry wydają się działać w porządku. Tak, zdecydowanie widać delikatne zniekształcenie liter biorące się z...
Move it, move it!
Z proporcji ekranu. Jest to ekran zdecydowanie przystosowany pod gry na NES-a, nie na Game Boya. Co nie zmienia faktu, że jest jak najbardziej grywalny. Pozostaje... Proszę bardzo, tutaj po zbliżeniu widać, że literki Option są lekko zniekształcone w stosunku do reszty. Nie jest to jakoś super widoczne czy super przeszkadzające.
Move it, move it! Someone must recover the bomb. I'm planting the bomb. Bomb has been planted. Terrorists win.
Plant. Plant.
Planted. Bomb has been planted. Terrorists win.
Ale zdecydowanie nie jest to sytuacja idealna. Ale widać, że zarówno gry na Game Boya Color, jak i standard...
Best smoke ever, bro. GG. Qualcosa dall'anima di chi ti è deceduta. One HP, last one.
Terrorists win. I'm planted. Bomb has been planted. I'm throwing a grenade. Terrorists win. This is what we have been working for. Throw in the decoy. Throw in the flashbang. Throw in smoke. Grenade out. I'm throwing the flashbang. Bomb has been planted. Smoke! Throwing fire. Terrorists win. We have done it. It is going to explode.
nowego Game Boya działają. Jestem bardzo zaskoczony, biorąc pod uwagę, że gadżet ten kosztuje $40. Podoba mi się ta konsola. Szczerze mówiąc, spodziewałem się, robiąc tę rupieciarnię, specjalnie wybrałem taką formę, taką typowo prosto nieprzygotowaną, bo nie spodziewałem się wiele po tym urządzeniu, a w rzeczywistości jest bardzo solidne. Nie mam się za bardzo do czego przyczepić. Ostatnią rzeczą, jaką przetestuję już poza kamerą, to wyjście wideo. Pokażę wam obraz bezpośrednio z wyjścia wideo i będziecie mogli ocenić, czy również ono się do czegoś nadaje. No ale niestety tu jest ten jeden duży minus, to bardzo prymitywne wyjścia wideo, wyłącznie w postaci niskiej jakości kabla kompozytowego, co na pewno da niskiej jakości obraz.
A tak prezentuje się obraz przechwycony bezpośrednio z wyjścia wideo nowego BitBoya. Zgodnie z przewidywaniami jest niskiej jakości, a nawet gorszy niż oczekiwałem, ponieważ wideo NES-a w 240p konwertowane jest do dużo gorszego 480i, co przejawia się tymi wyraźnymi paskowatymi zniekształceniami, które nie występują na oryginalnej maszynie, nawet podpiętej do telewizora identycznymi przewodami. Szkoda, bo nie ma w zasadzie ku temu żadnego sensownego powodu, jeśli chce się zachować kompatybilność ze współczesnymi wyświetlaczami, które nie obsługują 240p, to zdublowanie linii do 480p nie jest szczególnie wymagające technologicznie i pozbyłoby się przeplotu. Dziwne. Poza tym natomiast nie mam żadnych zastrzeżeń. Gry odtwarzają się w prawidłowej prędkości, audio nie jest zniekształcone i nie występuje nawet typowe dla tanich konsol zjawisko Reverse Duty Cycle. Jest naprawdę nieźle. Ostatecznie muszę więc przyznać, że nowy BitBoy pozytywnie mnie zaskoczył i przeprosić za swój początkowy sceptycyzm. Jeśli szukaliście przenośnej odtwarzarki retro gier, ale dotykowe sterowanie na telefonie nie jest dla was, to może być to spoko, choć nie idealna alternatywa.
Let's roll.
Grab your gear, let's go. Hostages coming out.
Counter-terrorists win.
Let's go. Go, go, go. Flashbang.
Close hole.
Okay, it's hole.
The hostage is out.
Behind you.
Terrorists win.
Let's move out. Let's go, let's go. Flashbang. Throwing smoke. Throwing fire. Deploying flashbang.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare. The first 500 people to use the link in the description get their...
Let's go.
first 2 months free. Deep in the mountains of Austria lies the small but scenic town of Hallstatt. But this isn't that. It's an exact replica, built 9,000 kilometers away, near Hong Kong, Austria, China. It's home to European architecture, Chinese cuisine, and all the traffic of North Korea. Because during the day, it may be the wedding photo capital of the region. But after the sun sets, its cottages become remarkably quiet. China's lookalike towns of places like Paris, Berlin, London, and Jackson Hole, Wyoming aren't alone. In many places across China, there are far more houses than there are people. Long rows of apartments, even entire cities, sit completely or mostly empty. In total, approximately 50 million units, or 22% of China's entire urban housing. But this doesn't mean they aren't being bought, because they are, like crazy. 10 years ago, most people were, as you'd expect, buying homes for the first time. Today, it looks like this. Second homes are the majority, and people are buying almost as many third homes as first. These aren't cheap either. In Los Angeles, the price per square foot is $633. In Shenzhen, $805. And close your eyes because you don't even want to know the price in Hong Kong. Now consider the difference in wages. The average annual income in Shenzhen is around $7,500 US, compared to $60,000 in LA. Something clearly doesn't add up. People in China are buying homes like Americans buy cars, but they're leaving them empty. And it's not clear where the money is coming from, or why they're being built. The usual explanation is that China's government is so desperate for economic growth everywhere, and houses to look at. But that's only one part of a much bigger story. China's troubles begin with its political system. The central government is the highest level of its only party. Here, laws are written and the fate of the nation decided. Beijing is the ultimate authority. It appoints everyone from secretaries to governors, and isn't afraid to move them around should any one official gain too much influence. But it would also be a mistake to see China as one singular power, because below the central government is a network of local divisions. 22 regional provinces, 4 municipalities, 4 autonomous regions, and 2 special administrative. Under those are over 300 prefectures, followed by the less important counties, townships, and villages. Now, just as Californians have different concerns Floridians, China is a big country, and the interests of a coastal exporter like Shenzhen are very different than those of, say, a more independent region like Inner Mongolia. The same is true for different levels of government. While Beijing writes the rules, cities apply and enforce them, often very differently. And there's one awkward little detail. Cities receive just 40% of tax revenue, but are responsible for 80% of their expenses. So naturally, they need another source of income. And this is where things get interesting. In China, rural land is collectively owned. Everyone, and also no one, owns it, which means it can't be the location of a new luxury apartment. But luckily for cities, they have the power to rezone land from rural to urban, which can be developed. In other words, they own a money printing machine. Watch this. First, a city buys cheap rural land, which it then redefines as urban, and finally sells to developers at its now higher price. Like magic. Over and over and over again. Cities get much needed cash, and developers build housing like it's nobody's business. Now, unlike states in America, local governments here are generally forbidden from taking loans. But again, there's a loophole. Cities can create a local government financial vehicle, which is a fancy way of saying a state-owned company. And by giving it that new urban land, the company can do what the city legally can't. borrow money, which they can use to build roads, schools, and, on occasion, replica Austrian towns. This is so effective that in some years, land sales account for 40% of local government revenue. Plus, all this construction increases GDP, which just so happens to be the way officials get promoted. It's a perfect system, at least until it's not. If or when housing prices fall, so does city revenue, and all those loans probably won't magically disappear. Beijing wants to avoid a housing crisis, but cities just want to survive, and governors get promoted, which puts the two at odds. Eventually, cities start running out of land to sell, and have no choice but to build more. Like this one, which spent $2 billion blowing up the tops of mountains. Those developers who purchased that land, by the way, are required to use it, which leads to many, often quickly constructed, low-quality houses. And that brings us to the second question. Why are people buying them? And doing it like their life depended on it? Well, for one, because it kinda does. Thanks to the famous one-child policy, China now has the entire population of Canada more men than women. And that means fierce competition for marriage. Men are expected to own at least one property before even being considered. It's one of the most important elements of social status. For many, real estate isn't just an opportunity, it's a downright social necessity. Because of this, friends and family pool money together to help buy homes for their children. And that's how nearly everyone in a country with the per capita GDP of the Dominican Republic can afford some of the most expensive homes on the planet. The other big factor is that Chinese citizens save like crazy. When it comes to saving money, there's China, and then there's basically everyone else. Where Europeans put 4% of their disposable income in the piggy bank, Chinese drop to nearly 40%. The problem is, where can they put it? China's domestic stock market is just too risky, and its banks are often seen as unpredictable, which makes real estate a Chinese investor's best friend. It alone accounts for 70% of all household wealth. It also doesn't hurt that property tax is a beautiful 0%. When taxes are only paid up front, why wouldn't you buy as soon as possible and just sit on it? Put all this together and you have a recipe for extreme house buying. An amazing 90% of homes are owned by their residents. Europe and the US stand at 69% and 64% respectively. And while we're on the subject of crazy high numbers, 94% of Chinese millennials who don't already own plan on buying in the next 5 years. What else do 94% of people agree on? Not even China can quench this thirst for real estate. Despite laws against it, billions of dollars flow out of the country every year into foreign property. It's so common in places like Vancouver that earlier this year it introduced a 20% tax for foreigners. The irony is that while cities like Beijing and Hong Kong have so little room people are forced to sleep underground, these 50 million homes can't find renters. So hey, if you live in California, I think I may have found an escape plan. Anyway, not only are these homes bought without interiors, literally just concrete walls, but they're also usually located outside city centers, where there aren't as many jobs. Now, the assumption in all of this is that eventually people will come, and speculation will become reality. The eastern side of Shanghai, for example, was once laughed at by Milton Friedman for being totally empty. Today, as a financial capital of the world with a GDP of 400 billion, we can pretty safely say it's proven the haters wrong. China is in the process of migrating 300 million people from country to city, and of course, they'll need a place to live. Inevitably, many of these cities will spring to life. That doesn't mean everything is peachy. A few things are decidedly not peachy. First, remember that the vast majority of empty homes is expensive commodity housing. These are not the kinds of places you buy coming from a farm in the country. And second, all these homes have an expiration date. In China, a building can be owned, but the land beneath it can only ever be leased from the government for 70 years. After that, it's anyone's guess whether ownership will be renewed, and if so, for how much. But the truth is, 70 years is pretty optimistic. Think about it this way. If construction is good for GDP, why build houses you can build and rebuild every year? It's kinda like the iPhone. If you'd like to upgrade every year, Apple will happily sell you a new phone. It's certainly not judging. Except in the case of China's housing, developers are incentivized to make short-term bets. They know their homes will only last a few decades anyway, which means using lower quality materials. Meanwhile, cities continue taking loans and housing prices continue rising unsustainably. Of course, Beijing knows all this. It's aware of the bubble, the risks involved, and it knows more or less how to fix it. Some combination of slowing down lending, reining in local governments, and introducing a property tax, like Shanghai. The problem is, real estate is so intertwined with its GDP that any of these solutions would seriously risk slowing down its economy. In the coming decades, the world will watch as China does its best to carefully balance its enormous challenges with its relentless desire to grow its economy and realize the Chinese dream. As Beijing prepares for economic change by diversifying its revenue, you and I should do the same. Today's sponsor, Skillshare, helps you learn new things so you can do just that. If you're still watching this, it's clear that A, you like learning things, and B, you learn visually, which means Skillshare's video lessons are perfect for you. There are classes on starting your own business taught by successful entrepreneurs,
put something in a game with complete certainty that no player will ever be able to find it. But that didn't stop gamers from breaking the games and finding them anyway. Today we're diving into the top 10 hidden moments in games that no player was ever intended to see. Banjo-Kazooie, nuts and bolts. So by now you may have noticed every time I cover a Rare game in one of my videos, it usually has to do with a troll they hid in one of their games solely there to get a laugh on gamers. Well, this time I'm finally getting the last laugh. Somehow Rare managed to miss this rather huge exploit that can be used to break the game from nearly the moment the game actually begins. All you have to do is take an object, any object, throw it on your cart, jump on top of the cart, and then on top of the object, and then you just grab the object. Wow. How did they miss this? Just about every possible direction, allowing you to sequence break huge segments of the game. So the goal of this game is to collect an object called Jiggies from Jiggy tamper switches, which are scattered all across the game world. So let's go ahead and skip a huge portion of this game. We're going to get the Jiggy hidden on top of this building well before you're supposed to. Yes, got it. That Jiggy is moving. Okay, now to just get Banjo on this damn pipe. Would you grab the thing?
Laying down smoke.
Okay, now for the moment I've been waiting for. Time to finally get back at Rare for all those incessant trolls. What? Probably looking for ways to break the game behind my back. Oh, come on! Once again, trolled by Rare. This exploit isn't as much as a facepalm as the last one, but with it you can see a rather interesting result only in a particular instance. If you were to stand in this corner of the Coliseum during Tiny's boss fight, you can entirely avoid the sequence where you have to cleverly dodge the stampeding tigers. I guess this spot's been uncharted. Okay, I'll stop. But things get more interesting in the Crash N. Sane Trilogy Remastered. Unbelievably, 20 years later, the same exact exploit is still fully functional. Now, considering this exploit was, hey, quit throwing cheese at me. Alright. Guess they caught me again doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Touché. Unreal Tournament 2004. In Unreal Tournament 2004, players found a hidden prompt inside the code that would only trigger in-game for a seemingly impossible circumstance. If the players somehow managed to snipe themselves in the head with the game's sniper rifle, they would be presented with this in-game message. The player has violated the laws of space-time, and snipe himself. Now, Unreal Sniper Rifle doesn't have range damage because it's actually a hit scan weapon. This means it only strikes exactly where the player cursor is hovering, which given this is a first-person shooter, that would mean it's pretty much impossible to move the cursor over your own head. Although I've never seen a player activate this prompt by legitimate means, maybe there is an actual possibility of pulling this off in-game and ripping open the space-time continuum. But what the hell would that even look like? Oh. Okay then. Hitman, Blood Money. It's not often you come across an unfinished placeholder left in a finalized game.
Go, go, go!
Bomb is along.
Plain as day for all the plain public to see, though I've certainly covered a number of insane instances of such before. In Hitman Blood Money, another brilliant piece of placeholder developer motivation was left in game on this lobster crate. When you pick it up, it actually says this in the description of the object. Alan, please add details. Nice going, Alan. The developers since have decided to have some fun with this unintentional moment because when you look at it again on the HD re-release, it actually says, "Any details yet, Alan?" But it doesn't end there. It even went as far as to appear in the trailer for Hitman 2016, and even appeared in a real-world example on the Hitman website. Sorry, Alan, but it doesn't seem like you're going to be living this mistake down anytime soon. Fortunately, you're not the only one on this list with the same problem.
We got this. Smoke.
They are rushing apartments.
Fire in the hole.
Bombs
Incendiary out.
Flash.
Throwing flashbang.
Sniper. Sniper A long.
Counter-terrorists win. Let's go, let's go! Incendiary! Throwing flashbang! Granate! Bomb has been planted.
It's B, what the fuck?
Flashbang. Defusing. Counter-terrorists win. Move it, move it!
Time Splitters 2. Time Splitters was a pretty solid first-person shooter franchise from the ex-developers of GoldenEye 64, which was rare, so you know who I'm dealing with here. In Time Splitters 2, if a player were to screw up an objective in the game, they're met with a rather standardized mission failure screen. However, if the player were to stay on this screen for several minutes, the background music begins to take on a number of very unusual and drastic changes, including some very strange audio that was later discovered to be highly manipulated dialogue from the character Captain Ash from the level Aztec Ruins. But if you can believe, a much stranger mystery occurs nearly 10 minutes after waiting on this screen.
Go, go, go! Grenade out! Fire in the hole!
Bomb is low.
Throwing fire!
Stay there, I'll go house.
Bomb is gone.
He took it.
Bomb has been planted. Deploying flashbang.
It's A.
I'm defusing the bomb.
Hadouken, can you buy me? Yeah. Thanks.
Go, go, go!
Going downstairs at B, watch out, Blue. One more, fast. Oh, got him.
Counter-terrorists win. Lost, lost, lost!
Suddenly a woman's voice comes straight out of nowhere.
Is that too loud? Is that too loud?
Given the context of what she says, the common speculation is that this is a totally unintentional moment accidentally left in the game, assumably from an audio engineer or audio editor suggesting that the audio mixing was a little too loud during that spookier portion. Again though, this is another game coming from ex-members of Rare, so it's pretty safe to assume this could be another troll here strictly to drive gamers crazy. But I'll tell you one thing, it certainly made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Is that too loud? Is that too loud?
Slender.
Go, go, go! Throwing flashbang.
A is clear.
Yeah, they're going.
Arrival. Slender Man has become an iconic horror figure of our time, with his big-budget Hollywood debut hitting theaters mere weeks ago. Not that that's worth watching. He's just some tall, faceless dude going for a stroll through the forest at night. I'm sorry, I saw Blair Witch Project and I just don't see what the— Holy done. I'm getting the hell out of here. Even if it means I'm gonna have to break the game and get through this invisible wall and get well outside the bounds. Okay, I think I'm safe. I don't think he can get me from here. Whew. Wait, what is that? Life is Strange. In Life is Strange Episode 1, there's a rather unusual—
Let's go, let's go!
usual hidden occurrence if you were to reverse time and angle the camera just right during this in-game event of Zachary throwing this football at Alyssa. What? Oh, okay. It's just David, Chloe's stepdad in the school's campus security, doing a T-pose. Well, that clearly wasn't intended. BioShock. Earlier this year, an anonymous user on the forums of 4chan made some questionable claims about the kinds of things the developers would do for inspiration when making the game. However, this person claimed that in order to prove they weren't
Purple, can you drop me an M4, please?
Lost!
Thanks, mate.
B again, one is 50.
Lion, they would reveal a never-before-seen hidden message in the game never found by any player before. Since BioShock is one of my favorite games and I love getting any reason to play it, go ahead and boot it up and see if we can get this thing. According to the post, go to the second half of Hephaestus, where you first encounter Ryan in person. Use Incinerate to get you down to 1 health point. And then use it again in the area where the cutscene triggers and walk into it. You'll die right when the scene starts, but wind up in a Vita chamber outside the map. Turn on art captions and you'll see a developer message.
We got this.
about Pell Hellquist not doing his job. No one has found this bug yet publicly. It's in all versions. Cheers. While it's clear the message itself is real, which is awesome, all the anonymous users' other claims were denied by former Irrational Games developers themselves. In fact, even Pell Hellquist himself said he was actually made aware of it about a year earlier on Twitter. Just like Alan, he knows that he's never going to live that one down. Half-Life 2. Being that Half-Life 2 is one of the most celebrated games of all time, by the way, where the hell is Half-Life 3? It also means that it's one of the most dissected and exploited games ever made. Players found if you were to boot up Half-Life 2 with any broken file paths in the data, you'd be met with some rather interesting placeholders, which can be especially jarring if you boot the game and somehow Alex's character model has gone missing.
Dr. Kleiner said you'd be coming this way. I don't think it occurred to him that you might not have a map. I'm Alex Vance. My father worked with you back in Black Mesa. I'm sure you don't remember me, though. Man, a few words, aren't you? Through here.
Can someone drop me? Thanks, man. Oh, it's fine. I took the MP just.
It's A.
Flashbang.
Sure.
Bomb has been planted.
Jade Empire. Jade Empire is an RPG based on Chinese mythology from BioWare, the team behind Knights of the Old Republic and a little series known as Mass Effect. And as common in an RPG that has a gambling system largely based on luck, there's a common exploit that gamers tend to utilize in these games. The trick involves saving the game before gambling, and if you lose the bet, you simply shut down the game without saving and restart the bet again until you finally win, thus avoiding any potential gambling losses, allowing players to endlessly restart and only save progress every time the players won. Well, even though it's kind of a common exploit in a lot of
Can we go in?
Yeah, let's go A.
Work together.
Wait, I'm flashing.
I'm throwing a flashback.
games. BioWare hit a little surprise for any players looking to break their game with this trick.
You called it right. A high roll doubles your wager.
What the? Change your shirt. Oh, and your pants? Yeah, no kidding. Me too, buddy. I don't even know how to be surprised anymore. If you enjoyed this video,
Oh my god.
If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and if you know of any other moments in video games that we weren't supposed to see, leave me a comment below or come join the Discord. We got a fantastic community over there of people researching Easter eggs, sharing amazing art, just generally the best community I've ever been a part of. Shout out to Pestilence Sleeper and Dr.
Last time on Bite Size, we spoke about level 1 and level 2 cache on processors up to Pentium specifications. But what about the Pentium Pro and its cousins, the Pentium 2, the Celeron and the Xeon chips? Well, let's find out. With the Pentium Pro, Intel introduced the revolutionary step of making a sort of double-sized chip. But looked like two Pentium chips side by side.
Yeah, sure.
The second chip, however, was a 512K L2 memory, a built-in cache RAM. This cache was that it could talk to the CPU at half of the CPU's full internal speed. That's the core processor frequency, not the external bus speed. Motherboards could be designed with even more external cache, and some Pentium Pro systems sold with as much as 1024K of external cache, a mix of built-in L2 cache and some chips on the motherboard. As any chips on the motherboard can only communicate with a processor at the external bus speed rather than the internal speed, you might call that on-motherboard cache a sort of L3 cache. The Pentium Pro has 16K of L1 cache, as did the original Pentium. With the Pentium 2, Intel created a larger, rectangular package called a single-edge cartridge, which no longer allows external cache. The single-edge contact cartridge was used at the beginning of the Slot 1 era for Pentium 2 CPUs. Inside the cartridge, the CPU itself is enclosed in a hybrid plastic and metal case. Previously with the Pentium Pro, Intel had combined processor and cache dies in the same Socket 8 package. These were connected by a full-speed bus, resulting in significant performance benefits. Unfortunately, this method required that the two components be bonded together early in the production process before testing was possible. As a result, a single tiny flaw in either die made it necessary to discard the entire assembly, causing a low production yield and high
Try to come A, I killed two. Put the bomb. One more behind the boxes on A, he's 17 HP. Go on him, he's low HP man, just one bullet. He left, he went to the right probably, just try to... someone just watch CD and someone house, should be good.
Terrorists win. Let's go.
Intel subsequently designed a circuit board where the CPU and cache remained closely integrated but were mounted on a printed circuit board, and this is where we get the single-edge contact cartridge from. The CPU and cache could be tested separately before final assembly into a package, reducing cost and making the CPU more attractive to market. The result of this is you can't design a motherboard for a Pentium 2 that contains any cache. The Pentium 2 has a built-in 512K of L2 cache, but that's it. I mean, the Pentium 2 also has more L1 cache from the Pentium Pro, 16K of data and 16K of instruction cache for a total of 32, but that leads to an interesting comparison for the older Pentium Pro versus the Pentium 2. As some of the Pentium Pro motherboards had room for a megabyte of cache, one can benchmark a Pentium Pro at 200 MHz versus a Pentium 2 at 333 MHz, and the Pentium Pro can actually be faster because it's got 1024K of cache versus the Pentium 2's half megabyte of cache. Now, the Pentium 2 Xeon chip addresses that problem and offers considerably improved performance for two reasons. First, the Xeon communicates between its built-in L2 cache and its processor at full core processor speed. A 400 MHz Xeon processor talks to its L2 cache at a full 400 MHz. Second, the Xeon comes up with 1024K.
Let's try maybe a rush from B. By smokes.
Yeah, let's go.
We must win. I'm throwing a flashbang.
Nice one.
Of built-in L2 cache. As you can buy the Xeon in up to 400 MHz speeds, it's the ideal Quake platform, or at least it was. But I haven't yet mentioned the Celeron. What kind of L2 cache does that come with? None. Yep, that's right, Intel figured that they could build a cheap Pentium 2, then they could keep Cyrix, AMD and other competitors from carving out a place in the under $1,000 PC market back in the late 90s. I mean, it does have the same 32K of L1 cache as the other Pentium 2 processors, but that is where it ends.
Time now, my brother. Throwing a flashbang. I'm throwing a grenade.
One more on base. Should be low.
Tech news, yeah! Let's get the people going, huh? Woohoo! Woo! Yeah! Here are my people in the back. Yeah! Let's talk about some server-grade processors, huh? Woo! You are excited, but wow, I didn't expect that. Okay. Intel is being besieged on all sides in the server CPU space. AMD's EPYC chips with high core counts are becoming increasingly popular, and now Amazon has announced they've made their own server chip. It's called the Graviton. Energy, James. And it's an ARM chip based off the Cortex A9 with up to 16 cores running at 2.3 gigahertz. It's unclear what modifications Amazon has made to the design, but maybe this is like the Amazon basics of server chips, you know. It's nothing fancy. Since it is an ARM chip, the Graviton doesn't pose much of a threat to the majority of Amazon's servers currently equipped with Intel chips. But it's an indicator that if Intel continues to drag its feet in processor design, I mean, who are we kidding? They'll probably be fine. It's Intel. Google's Project Fi has been sort of a niche alternative cell service for those with Pixels and other specific Android phones, but apparently it gathered enough XP because it is evolving.
Pokemon.
Yeah, it's a Pokemon. It's like,
Pokemon?
gotta catch them all, except there's only one, and it's Project Fi. Project Fi has evolved into Google Fi, rebranded, and with the new name comes support for many more Android phones, and for the first time, iPhones. Although iOS support is in beta, because Google Fi uses multiple cellular networks, that means that switching between networks or from Wi-Fi to data might be less smooth than with the fully supported devices. You also lose visual voicemail, Wi-Fi calling, and some other features, but the no contract, cheap data, great roaming stuff, that'll all be there. Now I need more time so that it can come to Canada.
Pokemon?
It could be called Alphabet Fi.
May say that it is President's Day, but it felt more like Independence Day for computer users. Today, many staged protests around the country and here in the Bay Area over having to pay for something they don't want and don't use. Microsoft's operating system.
On February 15th, 1999, groups of open source software advocates around the world got together at their local Microsoft office to stage a protest. While numerous demonstrations were held on that day in major US cities and even foreign countries like Japan and New Zealand, the most well-documented protest occurred in California's Silicon Valley. After meeting at a local Denny's restaurant and creating picketing signs, the group of over 150 protesters marched onward towards the Microsoft office building in Foster City. Members of the press quickly followed them with cameras and microphones to capture the event for local news stations and newspapers. The group was predominantly made up by Linux users, but users of other open source OSs were mixed in as well. Wearing shirts and hats outfitted with the Linux Tux mascot, the protesters arrived outside the Microsoft offices. Armed with unused and unwanted software licenses, the demonstrators stood outside the office building until they came face to face with Microsoft employees. They were here to demand a refund for something that they never wanted in the first place, but were forced into paying for. Microsoft Windows 98. The event became known as Windows Refund Day. To understand the story behind Windows Refund Day, we have to take a look back at the state of the computer industry during the late 90s. With the ongoing legal case brought on by the US Department of Justice, Microsoft was It was alleged that Microsoft was participating in anti-competitive business practices and having a monopoly due to their dominance in the computer operating system and web browser space. Windows was, by a landslide, the most used consumer desktop operating system at the time and still is to this day. However, even in the midst of Microsoft's monopoly, other alternative operating systems attempted to find their place. And no, I'm not talking about Mac OS. I'm talking about Linux, an open source operating system that is completely free to use. While Linux was not nearly as popular as Windows, at least in the consumer desktop operating system space, it did find its niche audience, tech-savvy computer users who wanted an alternative open source choice for a computer operating system. Linux resonated very well with these users who did not want to contribute to Microsoft's monopoly by using Windows 98. Some even went as far to claim that Linux was more secure and easier to use than Windows. But let's say that you were a Linux user in the late 90s and wanted to purchase a brand new PC pre-installed with a distribution of Linux. One thing you would discover almost immediately when shopping around is that the vast majority of computer manufacturers preloaded their machines with Windows 98. And I mean, why wouldn't they? Almost everybody used Windows, so it made sense for PC manufacturers to have deals with Microsoft to cater to these users. Microsoft sold more copies of Windows, the PC manufacturers sold more PCs, and the end user got an OS that was widely used and compatible with more software. It was a win-win. But if you were a Linux user, you didn't want Windows. So what could you do? While you could just wipe the Windows 98 installation off of the hard drive and install Linux, you would actually still be paying for that pre-installed copy of Windows 98, which was accounted for in the total cost of the PC. This frustrated users of Linux and other open source OSs because they were essentially forced to pay for something that they didn't want to use, and that's why they wanted a refund from Microsoft. Alright, let's talk about the refund. Believe it or not, Microsoft actually states in the end user license agreement for Windows that if a user does not accept the agreement, they can return their unused copy of Windows for a full refund. But instead of contacting Microsoft, they had to get in touch with the PC manufacturer. But as it turns out, things just weren't that simple. I mean, why do you think all these people got together to protest Microsoft anyways? This is where things get very interesting. See, if you were to call your PC manufacturer and ask for a refund for your unused Windows license, they would tell you that they can't handle refunds for Windows because they didn't manufacture it, and that you'll need to contact Microsoft for a refund.
In enlightened circles, this is called a catch-22.
So that's why